Hey, I'm Jennifer Hurvitz, and welcome to Doing Relationships Right. Raw, authentic, and insightful, this podcast is a no bullshit look at relationships during midlife. It's not just talk, it's practical advice you can use, stressing self-improvement and personal growth. This podcast guides you in navigating online dating, building resilience, and finding the right partner for a fulfilling and healthy relationship. Have questions that need answering? No worries, I've got you. And we'll figure it all out together without taking ourselves too seriously here on Doing Relationships Right. Good morning. Good morning. This is Doing Relationships Right. I'm Jennifer Hurvitz, and I'm your host every week, and sometimes more than once a week, but I just love it here. And so I'm with you today. And you guys need to buckle up. Buckle it up. We are having this episode. First of all, I have to say congratulations to these girls, to Bari and Jennifer, who their podcast called Private Eyes launches today. Am I right?
Yes. Woo!
Oh my God. Woo, 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 woo. I'm so excited for you guys. There's nothing better than a new podcast. And there's nothing, I have the chills. Like I've been doing this for 8 years. So for me, like, I'm glad to have you guys. So everyone's going to buckle up because we're talking about infidelity today. We're talking about relationships and cheating and all that good stuff, right? But I'm going to read first I'm going to do this. I'm going to introduce the girls. So Bari Kroll and Jennifer Rosant, did I say that right?
Yes, you did.
Awesome. Are private investigators who lead crazy lives shrouded in mystery. I am so excited for this. Okay. They are finally ready to come out from undercover to take you into the secret world of private investigating. So this is your podcast. This is what you talk about.
That's it.
And now I'm lucky enough to have you on my podcast to talk about
We're
it.
lucky to be
okay.
here.
So
Thanks.
you guys have to join them each week as they share shocking stories of cases they've worked on, give expert PI advice. Oh my God, you guys, and expose what it's like to be a female PI in a male-dominated industry. Oh, hi guys. I'm so glad to have you. This is so fun for me. Okay. So where do we start? First of all, congratulations on the podcast.
Thank you.
Secondly, let's talk about cheating spouses.
Cheaters
What do you
want
got
to
for me?
cheat,
Tell me,
you know?
cheaters want to cheat. Do you think that it's something that, like, I know a lot of people we don't talk about it. We're not like, we don't say, oh, I cheated on this one and I cheated. Do you think it's more prevalent than we really even know?
Oh, definitely. I definitely think it's more
I definitely agree.
than we know.
Awesome.
For lots of reasons.
Okay.
More often, I think people do know, and it's just a matter of suppressing those thoughts and not wanting to deal with it, or a lot of gaslighting situations where people really start to like doubt their feelings and their intuition that their partner is cheating, where they feel like they're crazy or they've been told they're crazy. So I think people don't talk about it because often they are feeling maybe ashamed or just plain crazy.
Yeah, I felt that way. I mean, I'm just being transparent. My listeners know that I talk about, but I did. When I was cheated on, I was like, God, I'm a coach. How did this happen? Like, how did this happen? And I was in denial, and it's crazy what we do is when we're in love. Is that what it is? Or when we, I don't know, don't want to let something go. But do you see it more now, the cheating with social media? Is there an increase?
I think social media had a big part in it.
Definitely. People reconnecting, huge aspect of cheating. People maybe not feeling satisfied in their current life, the choices that they made. And they go back to those times where they felt like they were so happy and so in love with that first boyfriend. And then they reconnect and think that things are going to be the same. And really they're two very different people than they were in high school. Yes. And then you end up destroying, what you have currently,
everything,
for really an old feeling, which you thought was the best thing in the world because of the way you feel today. But I also think it's created multiple layers of cheating now that, it's so much, there's so much accessibility, and it's not just physical cheating. I think the most hurtful is really emotional, when you are emotionally attached to something other than your current relationship, is probably more damaging than very often the physical itself. It also depends on the person. Some people, especially men, they feel more like, well, the physical aspect of it, or if you've had sex with somebody else, okay, we're done. Whereas women really have a hard time getting over the fact that their partner was sharing with somebody else, not even so much the physical aspect of it. So it's added multiple layers, and even like young folks, it's such an old word,
I
but
know,
like
right?
younger people,
Young
who are
folks
on
that love
Gen
it.
Z or whatever, they're on, they're on social media, and they like, a guy likes a picture of a girl that they don't know, some random girl in a bathing suit or whatever, what they call a thirst trap, and they're like, that's technically it's flirting. It's flirting with somebody.
Oh my God, I'm
online.
so glad you said
It
that.
is. It's
Can you say that
flirting,
again,
it's
please?
Sliding into those DMs, they leave those messages, and they think no one can hear, no one can see.
Or to them, it's not cheating because they're not actually having intercourse with them.
Right. It's not,
Yes.
it's emotional, whatever. Oh my gosh. This is like the best episode because I feel like we've all, not speaking for the whole, but a lot of my listeners, we've either been through this or we've done it and we thought it was okay and it wasn't. And there's a new word. I don't know. It's called poaching.
Poaching.
You guys know poaching?
Oh, okay.
Poaching.
I
Well,
could guess what poaching is when you just
yes.
throwing
So
it
it's like
out
when
there. And
somebody, when you know that someone's in a relationship and you poach anyways, you want to, you go in and you do the whole DM thing. You start the emotional relationship. So like this person fully knows, okay, she's married, but maybe she's not happy. I'm going to take a little.
And it's also no
dive
strings
into
attached. That they think like, well, they're not totally accessible to me. So, for a lot of people, it's, maybe that's just an easier mark, an easier target, less work for them, less that they have to commit to. It won't turn into something else. It'll just be physical or whatever, for a sexual type of thing, and not having those emotional strings attached to it. So totally.
And I think some of those people also, they can be someone that they're not. So they can act a certain way, talk a certain way, and say things differently or, write things differently to someone that they may be attracted to. There's so many different avenues.
The person that they, that they think that they're dreaming of. So.
Right. Or the chutzpah, I like to say. People get balls. All of a sudden they grow balls and they're like, hey, I can send this picture.
Exactly.
Keyboard. Yeah. Like they hide behind the screen and then they're, next thing you know, you're meeting in a parking lot.
Right.
At lunchtime. I find it's crazy. Like,
yeah.
Me too.
That's when we come in handy.
Oh, I love it. Okay. So let's perfect segue. Thank you, ladies. Look at you. You're already professional podcasters. Okay. Perfect segue. So, how did you guys get into the private eye business? How did it start? Where did you say one day you woke up and you're like, this is what we're doing?
That's basically what happened.
Oh my God, shut up. I love that.
I actually, I'll go first because I kind of roped Jen into this rodeo here. So for me, I never thought this is something that I would do. I ended up going into corporate America. I had been working there for a number of years, and I had my son, and I thought I was not going to work and I'd be perfectly happy being a stay-at-home mom. I was lucky. I was in a position I could do that. And why the heck would I work? Why would I want to do that? And so it turns out that I didn't like it very much. I felt very isolated. I liked adult communication and all of these things. And I was just kind of thinking like, well, what am I going to do? And I've always had this strange knack of like memorizing license plates and knowing cars and things like that. And one day I was driving around town with my son, trying to get him to nap. It's something that I normally did in my routine, driving around.
Me too.
And I saw a car drive by and I saw the plate. And I was like, oh, that's Stephanie. I'm going to call her right now. And I said, Stephanie, why are you at work? I see you driving around town. What are you doing? She goes, why don't you just be a private investigator already? And I said, that's what I'm going to do. I'm totally going to do that. And I literally went home and started making calls and I was hung up on, or some people were just really creepy when they answered the phone. They're like, hello. I'm like, hello. They're like, hello. I'm like, click, I was like, okay, that's not somebody I want to work for. But most of the, people that I called were kind of like, well, you don't have any experience. You're a girl. You weren't a cop, blah, blah, blah. And I was lucky enough to find a guy literally in the town over from me. And he said, can you type? I really need a secretary. I have a dyslexic secretary. And I just thought like, oh, this is going to be very interesting. What kind of business is this? And I really had no expectation. I had no idea what it was. So I kind of went in there, and I would say having low expectations is good. You kind of,
I agree.
You kind of appreciate everything that you're going into. So I did. I walked in and I met him, and he's like, God, I've never hired anybody that I didn't know. I'm really paranoid. And, but there's something you're so enthusiastic. There's just something about you. I think you'd be really good at this. He's like, do you want to try surveillance this weekend? I'll hook you up with one of the guys. They'll take you out. I was like, hell yes. And I went out. And it wasn't even like a really remarkable day. I think like maybe the woman came out for a second. I don't even remember, but I just loved the idea. I just loved how I felt. It was the adrenaline of just like waiting for something to happen and kind of like spying and looking and waiting for the next event and trying to guess what they were going to do next. And I just fell in love and that was it. And then I ended up, he retired and I took over the business, made it my own.
Oh my God.
And then I roped Jen into it.
She did.
Jen's like, hi.
So actually I knew Bari from high school. Some time had separated us. We went our separate ways and I was in sales for a really long time, looking for something different and, just out there in the world trying to find that different thing. And I utilized social media. I felt a little corny to put on there. Does anybody have a job for me? I'm willing to do anything. And Bari heard the word anything. She thought of me.
Perfect.
And, she had spoke to me, this is what it's about. And, at first I was thinking, I don't know what that entails, because I was thinking private investigator, man with a mustache and a hat and a cigar. And it's so different. And, doing
low
it now.
She had low expectations.
I had low expectations, but, I realize now all those times I was like sneaking my friends into clubs and coming up with things, like I always was able to get in things and sneak into places. And, when Bari said, you should try this. So I tried it and I loved it. And I mean, this is home for me. Yeah. I love Bari and I love this job and I'm not going anywhere.
How long have you guys been doing it? How long?
So I've been an investigator for 20 years.
And this is my ninth year.
Right. And I've she's been with me since.
Girls.
So I took over the business and started the business almost 14 years ago. And she's been with me 9 years. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you guys, it's really, really interesting to me because I've never hired a PI, but I know people that have. And I'm always wondering, like, what exactly goes down? Like, what exactly happens? How do you know that you need, that's a good question. How do you know that I need you? How do I know that I need to hire a PI?
I think you need to hire a PI when you need, there's a couple things. And this is what I usually tell prospective clients when they call. First of all, they have to be ready to face the truth, because a lot of times people need a private investigator because they are doubting themselves. And in certain circumstances, which are really sad, they still, even with proof that I can give them, they are still doubtful. They'll still go back to that other person and say, look, I hired a private investigator and they caught you having sex with this woman in a car. And the partner will say, we were only having oral sex. It wasn't actually intercourse. This investigator didn't show us having sex. And the client actually came back to me and was like, I showed it to my husband and he said they weren't really having sex. I said, lady, I can help you. If oral sex is okay with you,
like,
but
hey,
actual
Monica,
intercourse isn't, then we're done.
Yeah. My God.
So they have to be
my
ready.
My mouth is to the floor. Mm-hmm. They have to be
ready. And I tell them that all the time. It's not, private investigators are, look, obvious for certain things, if it's for court, if it's a court issue, that evidence that we get is used in court to be judged, by a jury and a judge. But if someone is being cheated on, specifically, if they want to know if their partner is being faithful, hiring an investigator is a tool for them, not for the other person, strictly for them. Because in most cases, it doesn't help you in a court of law. It doesn't mean anything necessarily to your divorce if that's the path you choose. And very often I tell people, you don't have to have a plan, but you need to know. Put it in your back pocket and hold on to it, sit with it, see how you feel, but don't disclose it. because the last thing you want to do is you're already feeling out of control. You're already feeling because someone told you that you're crazy. You're feeling crazy or you're feeling paranoid and you're not trusting your own instinct. Here I am giving you information that's helping you to know your instinct was right. Hold on to that feeling and go with it. Make the choice you need to.
I think that's worth, I mean, I wish that I'm thinking about it. I'm like, God, I wish that I knew you in that situation. I wish I could hire you in that, because it's true. Your head gets so like wrapped up in, oh, this can't be. And I'm sure it's nothing. And the text that I saw it wasn't that bad. And then you're like, next thing you know, you need you.
And it can happen.
You need to have you guys.
It can happen to anybody,
right.
no matter how smart you are, intuitive you are, whatever. I mean, people joke around with me all the time, like, oh, I bet your husband would never cheat. And I say never, because first of all, nobody's paying me to watch him. So I'm not. Yeah. And second of all,
I'll watch him for free.
Yes. That,
someone.
I know somebody, right? So, I mean, it could happen to anybody. So I never say never. It really could.
Right.
It could happen to anybody.
I mean, I have friends that are married that are like, oh, my husband would never cheat. I'm like, oh,
you're right.
Yeah. I mean, please. It's like, my kid doesn't do drugs,
exactly.
right? Same thing. It's like, oh no, not my kid, right? It's always, that's the one. So here's my question. So let's say that I'm married and I come to you and do you give me tips first? Do you say, how does the whole process, do you mind me asking?
No, not at all. So basically, I want to know, I need to know why you're calling, right? So, or reaching out. So, typically I'll ask a bunch of questions. Like, first of all, what's making you feel that your partner is cheating? So I want to go through that. And, oftentimes you can discern from that it might have been something in the past that had happened to them, that they're still feeling this kind of angst, even though it's a different partner, or oftentimes it's the same partner and it's happened before. So they're recognizing the same pattern. So they already know. They just want
need confirmation.
Yes, they want that confirmation. We go through their patterns of behavior, what has changed, what's making them feel that their partner is cheating on them. So just that basic history of the relationship, of why they would feel that way.
Right. This way we can take all that evidence and come up with a plan. And I know
always good. I joke around and say, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what day your partner's going to cheat. So my guess is as good as yours. And so the more information, keeping track of patterns and behaviors and things that they're doing, or times you can't get a hold of them, their radio's silent, or, you find out accidentally that they were supposed to be somewhere. You end up showing up there and they're not there. So things like that throughout the course of the day that you're noticing these behaviors. And it's still the same old, you could do a Google search and say, how do I know my partner's cheating? And it's the same old thing. They've changed their appearance. They started going to the gym. They're not accountable for their time. All the same red flags are still the same ones that exist today. And it's and
those are red flags,
they're all
right?
red flags.
Those are clearly
hiding their phone, not being open. So while everyone has there is a reasonable expectation to privacy with your phones and things like that, but a partner that isn't hiding something, if you said, oh, can I just, my phone's in the other room, can I just use it to do a quick Google search on something? Can you bring up, your Google or whatever? And if they're like, no, that's a red flag.
Huge, right? That's a huge red flag. Or if you're at night, you're talking and someone texts at 10, who texts at 10 o'clock at night or 11 o'clock at night, right? You're getting those texts and then you're hiding the phone or you're walking in the other room, or, people, it's baffling to me. We know, I knew that something, I knew. And I was like, what am I doing? It's just so frustrating.
And typically what Bari will say is, just like you're just saying, when you know. A woman's intuition will, we put that together and the answer. But when you do call us and go through all the info and answer Bari's questions, the one thing Bari tells you, don't tell anyone that you hired us.
Right.
People are
such a good point.
Stupid.
So dumb.
They tell their
You're so
friend
right.
because it's juicy. And then they're don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone. Their friend's like, oh my God, Beth, I got to tell you something. It's so juicy, but don't
just
tell
makes
anyone.
Things more complicated.
And
if you're going to hire an investigator, just keep it keep it under wraps. You don't even want to tell
That is
your
so
closest
interesting.
friends, because I'm not going to lie, there's been situations where it was that closest friend that was the other party to the affair. So you don't ever tell anybody what you're planning on doing. Maybe just your mom.
That is so
That's
smart.
Or maybe not your mom.
Honestly,
maybe not even.
Yeah, maybe not your, hopefully it's not your mom.
Yeah. I mean,
you
people
never
feel
know.
like they want someone to confide in, but if they're getting to the point where they want to hire somebody to, to watch their partner, you really don't want to tell anyone at all.
And I feel like some women, and I think probably men too, when they do find out, like it's legit, it's a, you confirm it, they still don't know. Some people want to stay. Some people don't believe. You were saying that, right?
And that's a really good point, because, I think sometimes people are afraid to know because they feel like they have to make a choice. They have to change their life.
That's exactly right.
And that's
right.
Almost as scary, if not more scary, than just finding out that somebody's cheating on you. And I mean, your whole life goes up in flames. It doesn't have to all go up in flames. So, very often it really depends on the circumstances. I mean, if you have somebody that's a serial cheater, this is like the second or third, fourth time they've done this to you, probably best to pack it in unless you like going through this. But if, there are certain circumstances where the relationship is redeemable, the person is redeemable, but it takes a lot of work. It can be done, but it's a tremendous amount of trust that has already been eroded. And to get that back, that person who cheated has to be an open book. They have to be until their partner is comfortable. And who knows, if it ever gets to that level of comfortability that they had before the cheating ever occurred. It might, you hope that it does so that the relationship can work. But I've seen people stay together, but it takes a lot of work. And most of the time, it takes work on both sides, because it takes two to make it and two to break it. Yeah. So the reason why somebody—
I love that. We use that as it takes two to make it and two to break it.
Because the reason often why somebody does enter into an affair is because they're dissatisfied with either something in their relationship or something in themselves. And it's more so something in themselves that would lead them down that path, that they don't have the coping skills to confront their partner and say, look, I'm not happy with this. I want to leave, so often it's really just a cover for that. So doing work individually as opposed to a couple is always really helpful to keeping the relationship. But very often, more often than not, even if they try for a while, they do end up parting ways, because that's really hard to get over something like that. Yeah. It traumatizes somebody for every subsequent relationship that they have after that, man or woman. So
their trust is like, you're just—
the worst thing you can do to somebody. It is the absolute worst thing that you can do to somebody else.
I always tell my clients, have dinner and then have dessert. Like have the dinner. If you want to cheat, end your relationship. Right. There's, or tell your partner, look I'm thinking about cheating. We got to work on this.
Right. That's very hard for people to do.
Very hard.
It's hard for people. Like I was saying before, like I've had people present video to, and it's not often that we get to see somebody having sex in a public space.
Oh,
that happens like really not very often.
So how do you, if it's not that, if you're not like, because you in the movies, we see them, they walk in, they're the whole thing with the camera. How does it happen? Like, I just love this.
Very often
it's
it's circumstantial. So you're already having a feeling that something's happening. And a lot of times people, when they reach out to us, they have a good sense of who the other person is. They've already checked phone logs, call logs, records. They've done the reverse number searches. They've done a lot of work. And the internet and social media has become a tremendous tool for people to use. And by the time they get to us, it's like they want the picture, they want the action, they want to see it happening. So at that point, they have a good sense of what's going on. So how does that happen? I don't know. We do surveillance. We follow people to different places. And a lot of times what we see is circumstantial, and they have to be, and this is something else I tell my client, what can you tolerate? Because I'm probably not going to get them making out in public. Okay. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. depends how much money you want to spend. We can keep going and keep watching till something like that happens.
And we have seen some juicy stuff.
Is it enough that they just walk into a hotel together? Is it enough they just get into a car and sit in that car, for 40 minutes together? We don't know what's going on in that car, but what is inappropriate to you? What are your boundaries?
Oh, that's such a great point.
Because very often, and now if you took that to the other person and said, oh, I had a private investigator follow you and you sat in a car with this woman for 40 minutes. They could come up with if you're already downing yourself.
1 million.
And that person says like, oh my God, her father just died. She's a coworker.
I had to console her.
Consoling her. I'm such a good guy. These are the things I was doing.
Being gaslight.
Now what are you going to say? Maybe he's telling the truth, and you're already downing yourself. So of course you're going to think he's telling the truth. So you have to already be able to trust what we're going to show you. Is it,
Right.
So it's hard.
Yeah. And be ready for it. We had a woman come to our office one day because she said, can I watch the video with you? And
yes, that's awkward.
That was a little awkward for us.
That's happened a few times.
She came in and she watched the video with us and she was like, oh, no way. I'm prettier than her.
That actually made me feel better.
It did. She was like, my body is so much nicer than hers.
And right away, I tend to think I kind of maybe know why maybe this is happening in your life right now.
Yes,
this is like your biggest concern.
Hello.
Right.
Yes. Hello. Your biggest concern is what you look like. Right. Exactly. Oh my gosh. It's so, okay. So keep going. So then they come in, you do that. And then you were saying something. I cut you off. I'm sorry. Did I cut you off?
I don't think so.
No, I think we're okay.
Then we,
anyways, here's my
right. We find some evidence and then we confront them, like Barry was saying. Like, are you ready for this?
Okay.
This is what's happened, and it's really what their expectations are.
Right.
Okay, I have a question. Can I ask you some questions?
Yeah,
I have a question. Do you believe that every couple should follow each other on Life 360, or is that like my boyfriend and I have been together 7 years? I've never even asked. I've never looked at his phone.
And I'm a private investigator.
I don't. Yeah, I mean, I feel like if anyone's cheating, it's going to be me, not him, right? So he's just like a really solid guy.
Well, for example, my wife the other day, I said, after work, I'm going to go. She said, why the hell are you telling me? I don't care where you're going. I don't need to know. And just answer your phone if I call. I'm like, okay.
That's me.
So
is that
really
okay?
Depends on people. It is
that
okay.
Means you're secure.
Okay.
Your
Good.
children,
I know
you
that,
should follow
I
your children until a certain
I do.
age.
Every minute. I'm still following them. They're in college.
Okay.
Oh, college. It's important to follow them in college. Stuff happens there.
It is. I feel so much better. I feel so validated because my friends are like, I can't believe you follow them, don't you? I'm like, look if God forbid something happens, they're in Syracuse and I'm in Charlotte. And I don't have,
look, I have no problem with using tools like that if you're not obsessed. Okay. When it becomes an obsession, when you're checking every 5 minutes and you're really being like a helicopter parent and like wondering where they are and what they're doing or who they're socializing with, like that's a problem. But like, I don't think there's anything wrong with having that feature available. God forbid anything can happen.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's pros and cons to that. It's the obsessive looking that is the issue. It's not so much having it. But if you're secure in a relationship, I don't think that you need to have, tags on people of where they're going and what they're doing. I don't think it's, honestly, I don't think it's, I mean, people might disagree, but I don't think it's a normal, shouldn't be a normal part of your life, of your day.
Thank you.
To know that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I don't. It's funny because my friends are like, I can't believe you guys don't share locations.
Why would you do that?
Why would I share? I'm like, so if I go to buy a birthday present, he's going to I just don't, I have no desire to do that. And I feel like it's I hate to say I'm so old, but the younger kids, like my kids' age, they're in their 20s and they both have girlfriends and they both follow each other. I'm like, and they have the Snap map and they don't, I can't believe, and then Riley didn't call me back, but I'm like,
okay, that causes so much anxiety. I feel like that does way more harm than good.
Preach.
This is
agree.
Like people are anticipating something bad.
Right. I think it just comes from anxiety. And it has to come from something, insecurity in the last relationship right? I mean, I know
definitely,
this, right?
Definitely. I think that's when it becomes a problem that there comes a point where, what did we do before all of this? What did we do?
Right. What did we do?
We're still cheating the same, with the exception of
sure are.
If anything, be off social media, because that's one of the biggest culprits and ways to hide, those types of relationships. The tracking and all of that stuff, it becomes an obsessive behavior, which is really unhealthy for the person who's, tracking and for the relationship itself. So I'm not a big, I do like it when somebody wants us to do surveillance and they're like, I know where they're going to be. I'm like, great. You just made my job so much easier. But so then I like it. But otherwise I don't, I'm not surprised when people are like, we don't share locations. Usually I'm not surprised by that at all.
My friends are like, I can't believe it. And then I have a client actually, I do dating coaching, and she, in her criteria for her like non-negotiables is that she wants to have location services on.
Yeah, and again, I think you nailed it, Jen. You're like, that comes from some kind of past issue.
Yeah, she was definitely cheated on.
So you know what? If your partner, if your partner understands, the flip side to that is when someone has been hurt in that way, I mean, it really damages, your perception of a lot of things, your trust in everything. And a loving partner will understand that. If it's that, whatever they can tolerate, well, that's great. If that's making that person feel better and secure in the relationship. But it's also comes a point like, are you going to penalize everybody? I mean, whether they have something to hide or not, people have a reasonable expectation to privacy. Yeah. I feel like, look, if both people can tolerate it and they're okay with it, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. But, and laying it out on the table actually is a good thing. Saying, look, these are the things are non-negotiable for me. And if a guy looks or a girl looks at that and says like, I'm out, then great. Then that's not the one for you.
Person.
Right.
That's
so
exactly
I don't
right.
think it's a bad thing.
You guys, I have another question. Are you guys like therapists too? Because I feel like you probably have to, I'm listening to you guys talk. I'm like, right. That's what I tell my client. Mm-hmm. That's what I feel like you could end up being, someone's therapist when this is all going down. Like, how do you even cope with that?
We both had our own personal experiences, right?
Yes.
Married, children, lived it, get it. Relationships with different people, different jobs, different, just all kinds of different relationships from our personal perspective. But I think why people look to us, not so much. I always say I'm not a therapist. I can't tell you what to do, but I do know what people do. I work a lot with attorneys. I work with so many people that, that therapy is a wonderful thing. So I've talked to people, they've confided in me that this is what they've done. People have called me after the fact. And, it's also our professional experience of the things that we've seen that do make us not a therapist, but kind of experts in that realm of what do people do? You're not alone in this. You're not the only person this has ever happened to. Let me tell you what this client of mine did that was helpful to her. So I do share those experiences, my own and those of my clients, of course, without ever disclosing who they are. Right. But there's their situations are very similar. I mean, I've seen and heard it all. Unfortunately, none of this is unique. But I think that, therapy being very important in terms of dealing with something like this happening to somebody. Yeah. I could tell you, and this is something that gives me chills even still to this day. I was in a local salon and somebody approached me and said, I guess they heard my name as I was checking in, and they said, are you the private investigator? And I said, yes, because I'm a little paranoid too. I'm like, yes, why? And she's like, you helped me. She's like, we met like so many years ago. It was actually before I just started the business. I didn't even have an office, and we had met for coffee at a local a place down here by the shore. And she's like, you helped me so much. I just want to let you know, like, I'm married now and I'm really happy. And I totally I couldn't remember her name. And I'm like immediately going through like my emails from like 2012, like, who is this person? And I did figure out who she was. And then of course I'm peeping her on Facebook. I'm like, oh, she has a child now. And everything like came back to me. I knew who she was. But I had chills. It was so like satisfying to hear that. And ultimately, for this particular person, we didn't even do any surveillance for her. We met, we talked, I gave her some pointers. I told her about, in my experience, what I had seen, what people had done. And that was enough for her. So that was really interesting that she approached me all these years later and said that.
That is nice. That's so, it makes you, you're doing the right thing. What you're doing is working. I love that. Okay, girls. So first of all, before, do you mind giving me a couple tips? I don't want to give away all of your secrets because people need to hire you. Everyone get a pen and write everything down. But I mean, what are like some tips as far as in general using you or
tips
knowing
in
that
using
your guy, I don't know.
or
Like
are you
tips
talking
tips
about
in-
tips like you think your
tips
spouse
like-
or boyfriend,
Yes,
girlfriend is
yes, yes, yes.
cheating and how
Yes,
do I know?
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
I think you look for certain signs. Do you see something like different behaviors? And you know, those kind of things. And then there's always other things too where you know, you want to do a little investigation on your own. You know, I tell my friends you know, check the pockets. You do his laundry, check his pockets, see if there's a receipt.
I never thought of that.
See how much the bill was. If the bill was a certain price, then you know, okay, he wasn't just having drinks for himself. He was buying drinks for others too.
And I also think it's the totality of everything. Nobody should take one piece of information that they found and say, declare, oh my God, he must be cheating. It's the totality of things. It's not just one thing. You know, it has to be a combination of a couple different behaviors. So if somebody calls me and says, there's just a random number and it keeps coming up and it keeps coming up because people check phone logs. That's another tip. I mean, if you have access to the phone lines, in other words, if it's in your name or you're part of you're on the bill in some way, shape, or form, then you have a right to collect those records and check them. But people who become obsessive over one little thing, they keep saying this number come up, and they hire us and like, I tried to run this number and I can't find it. Well, we have different resources. We find out who the number belongs to, and it's the guy's boss.
I'm laughing because of that. Case. I know that case. Oh my God, it is so funny.
And my client's like, I should have known that. But, you know, she was feeling that way because they probably should be having some kind of a discussion as a couple. Then why is she feeling like she couldn't ask him, like, you know, who are you talking to? Or, you know, or something is making her feel insecure that she thought this was an issue. So like Jen said, looking for receipts, checking phone bills. You know, iCloud is a big deal. Like you could see people's emails, and I tell people like, get off iCloud because I mean, like, especially if you're going through a divorce or, you know, the relationship is ending, get that phone wiped, set up new accounts, like, because you don't want people being attached to that and being able to see, you know, what you're doing. So what other tips? Behaviors are big.
Oh, I have a question. What about cash? What about if a guy pays only cash everywhere? Is that a red flag, do you think?
That's interesting. Well, what do they
do for a living? Because I honestly was, well, that's exactly right. So I was dating this guy and he was married. I had no idea. So that goes to tell you, he only used cash for everything. Like there was no document of, I mean, even like crazy big things like a hotel room or like, you know, not just dinner. I'm talking like nothing was on record. Right. So at the end when I'm like, and I never saw his apartment, he only came to me. Yeah. I was like, that's a huge one. Right. Yep. And so I was young, but like thinking to myself, God, how come it's just so nice that he puts me up in a hotel when I come to visit. Hello. But like, I'm looking back going, Jennifer, you knew. And it's just, you want to beat yourself up. I do want to beat myself up for a lot of these assholes. And I feel like it just makes me the next relationship I go to have, or I start to, you know, you start to get involved with something, you immediately think red flag, red flag. But what's a red flag and what, like you're saying, some things are just not. Like, I feel like it's a new relationship.
In a new relationship, and you know, you're developing that relationship. I think it would be highly unusual to not see where this person lives, and not only because they're married, but like, do you want them living with their parents? I mean, I don't know how that's. I don't know if that's a great thing for a new relationship. I could tell you stories, you guys, depending on how old you are, of course. But I mean, but I think that
the things I've heard, I'm sure we could have a conversation about. Like,
I know.
I'm like, wait a minute, you know, like I mean, I had a friend who was dating a guy who. I can't even, said he was like a Navy SEAL, said he was a CEO of Target, said that I was like, okay, like he lived in another place. So he always came to her, whatever. And I think she just like wanted to believe it. She like wanted to like buy the, you know, horse and pony and the whole thing. And it ended up that he lived out of his car.
See,
he lived out of his car and he was a stock boy at Target.
Oh.
Oh my God. I'm like, So that's the kind of shit I'm thinking. Like, how do you recover from that? It's hard.
Yeah, well, I think as soon as you find out, you move on. I mean, you get
Yes,
so it's
absolutely.
look, people inherently, we want to trust other people. I don't think there's anything wrong with us as people wanting to believe what someone's telling you, but it comes.
Right.
The problem is that people do not want to acknowledge or trust their intuition, and that's something within them that they feel like they might be wrong or they can't be right or they like
Right.
so that's something that is really critical to the work that we do. Intuition plays a big part in investigating. While we are not biased, look, I'm not going to just because you're telling me my partner must be cheating, I don't go out there with that mindset. You don't go out there with that mindset. We're like, we're going to see what we're going to see. And sometimes they're not cheating. And that's harder to explain than if they were, interestingly enough, because you know this person is tortured for one reason or another, and you want to give them the satisfaction of having an answer. And sometimes the answer is it's not happening, and you have to figure out why are you feeling that it must be. It must be.
That is so interesting too.
And there are some people that are super cagey, like just really, really cagey and really skilled at hiding things. But again, being aware of the amount of red flags, the totality of everything should bring you to a conclusion that you should be comfortable knowing that what they're saying is not true. And I think that the issue is people just don't want to believe it. I don't know how you fix that.
I didn't want to believe it.
How do you fix it, Jen?
I don't know. You know what? Come see me.
Yeah.
We should work together. You guys send me all of your clients.
Good.
And I'll send you but honestly, like, I think you're absolutely right. You have to want to know. Mm-hmm. I did not want to know.
Yeah, you have to want to.
I didn't.
Honest.
I was like,
you're being totally honest about that. And I think that's the hardest part.
The craziest thing for me is that I didn't want to know because I didn't want my kids to ever think that their dad was X, Y, or Z. Right. And meanwhile, I had no idea. I just had all these gut, feelings. And I'm like, I'm getting divorced anyway. We were getting divorced. I'm like, it's amicable. Things are fine. I'm like, why do I don't really know. But at the same time, I know.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Like, I totally know.
I think when children are involved, it's just one of those things. A little different. So people...
I think so too.
Yeah, we've
they hide it more. Mm-hmm. Not that they hide it; they don't want to accept it as much.
It's too hard. It's not hard. Just you whose life is changing.
It's a family.
It's everybody.
That's exactly right.
Like being uprooted and possibly having to move, and the animosity between the parents, and and alienation, and all of these things that could potentially happen going down that road is a really scary thought that nobody wants to be involved in. So
no one.
That really is probably the biggest problem, is that just feeling like you have to make that big change. And it's not just affecting you. But I don't know. I just think that intuition and honing that skill and trusting in yourself, and maybe it's daily affirmations for somebody to say, that people need to start doing, or meditating. I mean, all of these things really work to hone your intuition and to, and of course, past experiences form who you are, and there could be a lot of trauma back there. And therapy is really the probably the only way to move forward with that and have healthy, positive relationships going forward.
Right. Communication. You need to communicate on all levels. So,
right. And just because you have a partner that cheats, it doesn't mean the next one you have is going to cheat on you. You
have to give
Thank you
for saying that too.
You have to give yourself the effort to try again, to trust again, and not everybody is the same person. So you're not going to have the same experience.
This has been, honestly, I could talk to you guys for another hour. That
was an hour
the
already?
Most,
Has it been an hour?
I know, do you believe it? It was 45 minutes. It went so fast.
Oh my God,
but it was so enlightening to me.
I want to keep talking to you.
so fast. Well, I'll come on your show. Come back and talk again.
Absolutely.
But wait, so Private Eyes is the name of the podcast. Yes. Are you everywhere? Obviously.
Yes. Apple,
Instagram.
Spotify.
Where can people find you?
We're on
everywhere.
Apple, Spotify, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube.
Yeah, we have a YouTube component. So
I love the YouTube. But if somebody wanted to hire you, how do they find you?
How does website, blorninvestigations.com.
Perfect.
And they can reach out by phone. But phone is always best because I need details. Just an email saying, I think someone's cheating. How? Why? Call me. Let's talk about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and another thing is if right now you can send us an email if you want.
Oh,
we
yes.
might answer your question,
if you have a question
on our
to be featured
podcast.
on the podcast. Of course, names are,
Nice.
private
so
unless you want people to know who you are.
I have some questions.
yeah, so email us
Send us
at
some emails.
theprivatizedpodcast@gmail.com. And, people can have their questions answered on our podcast.
I think that's amazing. That is really, because you know what? You never know when you're helping someone else that's a listener, right? That's why I love this. You're reaching so many people, right? Oh my gosh, girls, I'm so glad. It was so nice to meet you.
You too.
It was so great
good
to meet you, Jennifer.
Oh, you guys, thanks for being here.
Thank
I
you for
appreciate
having
you.
us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Listeners, do me a favor. Follow the private eyes. Follow these ladies. And if your intuition is telling you that something's wrong, something is probably wrong. And if you need help, you're my go-to. You're who I'm sending people to, Private Eyes. Jen and Bari, thank you so much. And everybody, when I leave, every time I close my podcast, I say the same thing. I say, do something great for yourself today, do something positive. And then I say, peace, love, and truth. So peace, love, and truth, y'all. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks, girls. And we will see you next week. Well, I'll see you next week. Bye, guys. Hey, thanks for listening to Doing Relationships Right. Don't forget, if you love my content and want to show your support, subscribe, rate, and review it on your favorite podcast platform. And grab my books, Midlife Priceless, A Dating Coach's Guide to Finally Doing Relationships Right, Woulda, Coulda, Shoulda, and One Happy Divorce at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target.com, or my website, jenniferhurvitz.com. Thanks for listening. See you next week. Peace, love, and so much truth.